Whose life did you unintentionally mess up? My parents. I came from a middle upper class family, so my parents paid for everything while I was in college. Housing, tuition, groceries, everything. I had my dad's credit card, and at 20, I started going out to the bar and spending lots of their money. They continued to support me, to pay for everything, and I continued to abuse it for years while ignoring their threats that they would shut off the credit card, which they never did. My dad sent me a heartbreaking email one day that said I'd spent all of his retirement money and they were struggling to pay the mortgage. It absolutely broke my heart and I cried just thinking about it. It ruined my relationship with my parents. It's been a few years and I'm making quite a bit of money now. Our relationships are better than they've ever been. At any opportunity I can, I send them money and will continue to do so until they tell me to stop. I will forever be indebted to them for everything they have done for me, and I'll do anything I can to help them live comfortably for the rest of their lives because that's what they've done for me. To those who grew up in a loving family, don't ever forget how much your parents love you. Don't ever take it for granted like I did. People brought up a lot of points that I've never thought about. I've definitely learned and grown from this experience. Story 2. It was middle school and we were taking one of those state-based tests. I don't really remember the name, but it was the history portion. Our history teacher wasn't the nicest woman and she wasn't fair, so no one really was that thrilled to be in her class that day. I remember sitting down, carrying my backpack and tossing it to the side. I was in a bad mood and so I just kind of threw it down, not really caring about it. I just wanted to get this test over with and then take a nap because they made us put our head down when we were done. 20 minutes into the test and I'm blazing through it. I do love history, so I had no problem despite our mean teacher. She was walking along each aisle, checking each person, making sure nobody was cheating. One kid was already yelled at, so we were afraid to look up. I saw her shadow approach from the left side, slowly working down the aisle. Afraid to look up, I stared at my paper, but a scream next to me spiked my head up. "Ugh!" she wailed as her elderly body went flying, her body landing on the ground with a big whomp. She tripped on my backpack. I looked down in shock. "I can't get up. I can't get up," she wailed on the ground. I was frozen in fear when a teacher's aide ran to her. "Aide, go get the principal. Everyone out of the class," she yelled. We were all rushed into the hall. More teachers arrived, then the principal. An ambulance came as there was a hospital close by, and then she was taken away. "Did you trip the teacher?" Noodle tripped the teacher. It spread like wildfire. I was suddenly the kid who tripped the teacher. The next day, we had a substitute and the principal in the class with us as we were about to finish the tests. "This is why you were supposed to tuck your backpacks under your desk, not in the aisles." I never got in trouble for it. It was never pushed to my family. We got a replacement teacher who was actually really cool and history became a lot more fun again. I learned later our history teacher came back. She had damaged her arm and hip permanently, needing a walker. She was getting medically retired but came to say hello to some old students. I never saw her, but one of my best friends did. The teacher commented on, "It's important to forgive, especially those who have wronged you." She had stared directly at my best friend at this time, knowing she and I were close. The history teacher left the school that day, never to be seen again. Update. So a lot of arguments are seeming to pop up, so I want to say this. This thread was about how I unintentionally messed up someone's life, not how they messed themselves up next to me. I left the backpack there and she got hurt. She didn't deserve what happened to her, even though I didn't like her. In my mind, it's still both funny and horrifying to me even after almost 2 decades. So don't be that kid. Tuck away your bag. Sounds like she should have been the drama teacher instead of history. She should have watched where she was walking anyway in the first place, right? That's my take. Story 3. I can't blame myself too much, but this is all pretty recent, so I feel a little responsible. My best friend growing up used to have his grandpa take us home every day together. In high school, my best friend growing up dated this girl. They dated for roughly 2 or 3 weeks and ended it, so it wasn't very serious at all. Over a year later, I somehow ended up getting close to her and asked my friend if it was okay because of their previous relationship. He said it was fine and to go for it. Well, I did, and he didn't take it too well, but didn't really show it. Me and him had naturally grown apart at this time, but we're still good friends, just didn't hang out together daily. He was a bigger kid, but after that, he started losing weight like crazy. Then, not long after, the remains of his father's body were found when he died in a tragic accident during his childhood 12 years earlier. He took this really hard, obviously. We grew completely apart, and I continued dating this girl through high school until we broke up senior year. He couldn't handle seeing us around each other, so we pretty much stopped talking altogether. Freshman year of college, though, we reconnected and spent some time together. It started becoming more frequent, and he was coming to parties with me, and we would hang out at his house. Around this time, though, I reconnected with this girl. We had some time apart, and getting back together at our age, we were taking it seriously. My friend didn't disappear this time, but I did notice he had slowly been drinking more. He was already drinking heavily before we got back together, but I thought it was just like all of us college kids were doing. We all drank, smoked, and generally did nothing if it wasn't schoolwork. One night, though, I went to his house and noticed it was a bit much. I watched him drinking full glasses of gin and eventually blacking out in the backyard. I moved him to his bed, and his girlfriend watched him all night. This was the last time we talked, and he removed all communication with me. Years went by, and I tried to reach back out. He and his girlfriend had a kid, but broke up. He had blocked me on Facebook, and if I tried to text or call, he wouldn't answer. Time just kept going, and I always thought about him. 3 weeks ago, I got a call that he ended himself in his driveway. You can't help but wonder what you could have done or how much you contributed. I wished I had reached out. I don't think just the girl coming between us was the sole reason at all. But he had said to his ex-girlfriend that he thought about taking his life. He said he couldn't do anything right and he didn't have anyone to turn to. His life didn't go how it should have at all. He was top of our class and had such potential, but decided to go to a smaller school at home. He failed out and stopped going while the rest of us moved on with our lives. I wish I would have tried more. Story 4. My friends and subsequently her families. Our group of friends decided to just go out one night and party like crazy. We were just being dumb and doing stupid teenage stuff. We were all reckless, thought we were invincible, and then she died. I don't feel like it was solely my fault, but I do feel like I contributed to ruining her life because I was there and I was being as irresponsible as everyone around me. I get physically ill when I see posts about her every now and then. It's even worse when I interact with her parents, which isn't often, and I know that's terrible, but I can't bring myself to face them. I almost puked when they were tearfully telling my friends and me stories of my friends' childhood and talking about the things they regretted with their parenting, as though them yelling at her over not cleaning her room or stuff like that while she grew up led to her death. We were the worst thing to happen to her. This has been on my mind a lot lately, and when I come across the thread, I saw it as a place I could vent about it with anonymity on my side. I don't really like talking to people I know about this, so I usually just avoid speaking about it as much as possible. I thought I'd post, it would just get lost in all the other posts, and that would be that. But this is the internet, so I have no clue why I'm so surprised. I saw that a lot of people were curious about her death, and there were debates about asking me, and while I won't go into extreme detail about what happened, I'll say it was alcohol poisoning. She had too much in her system, and her body just shut down. I feel guilty for a lot of reasons, like going along with everything and living when we drank the same crap that night. But the main reason I feel like I contributed to messing up her life is because I know most of us wouldn't have been in that situation if we all hadn't become friends. I say most because there were definitely one or two who were heavily into the party scene, while the rest of us were not. I drank before, but never in the kind of way some of these kids were into. Their partying was insane. She definitely wouldn't have been in that situation if she didn't know us. I hope this answers any questions surrounding this post. I also hope this makes people realize that they're not invincible, because that was part of the problem with my friends and I. We thought bad shit couldn't touch any of us, so we went around acting reckless and thinking there wouldn't be any consequences. Alright, this one is hard to read and to talk about, but honestly, this person shouldn't be blaming themselves as much as they are. Things do happen. We can't blame the person for what happened to the friend because, well, at the end of the day, even if we tell someone not to do anything, it is always their choice to accept or to do otherwise. Story 5. This girl in my college program who I'll call D. Now, D was constantly late for class. It's a riding horse training program, and you have a horse you're responsible for. You have to clean the stall and have the horse ready to go by 8 a.m. With the limited available tools, I was up at 5 and there by 5:30 a.m. Most kids would show up around 6:30 or 7, scrape all the messy stall shavings to the side and get their horse ready. D showed up at 7:45 at the absolute earliest and would still be brushing her horse by the time the instructor showed up at 8:10. This is bad. Every time you're late for the writing class, you get warnings. One verbal, one written, a second written with extra chores added, and your third and final warning results in an eviction from class. D and I actually got along okay otherwise. She partied a lot. As we were nearing midterms, I asked if she'd like to go out one night and celebrate. She agreed, and I made her swear we would be back in by midnight at the absolute latest, so we could be there in time for our writing final. I got my boyfriend to join us. We pre-drank at my place, went to one of the local bars and had a few, and I said it was time to go home. This was not enough for D. There was a party on campus. I told her, hard no, time for bed, writing final in the morning. My boyfriend and I dropped her off at the edge of campus and went back to his place. She went to the party, I went to bed. The next morning, she asked me to clean her stall and tack her horse for her, and I declined. It was writing finals day, and that meant I was going above and beyond my usual over-the-top routine. My stall was immaculate. I absolutely scraped out everything at 5 a.m. and replaced it all with all brand new stuff. My horse was clean from head to toe, mane and tail braided. D got there at 8:15, didn't actually enter the arena until 8:45. She was ejected from the program. If I hadn't taken her out or had bucked up and cleaned her stall and tacked her horse, I'd like to think it wouldn't have been so bad. But she was there late anyway, so I try not to blame myself. We still talk, she's doing well. The class was super catty and some of the girls in it were total witches, so she's glad she's free of it. Now that I'm graduating, I'm glad to be done as well. It was one of the hardest AG programs in the country. Story 6. One of my supervisors in my master's had to pull me aside, buy me a pint, okay, a few, and let me know that the comments I was giving on undergraduate essays, while uncommonly detailed and thorough, were a wee bit trenchant. Not wrong, not excessive, just phrased in rather devastating ways. To put this in perspective, this was coming from a prof whose body research had to do primarily with Alexander Pope and the Scriblarians, who had an exceptionally high tolerance for harshness of wit and service of criticism. I dismissed this as him passing on the sophomoric winging of a few kids who didn't like their grades, but knew they had no grounds to actually complain or grieve the mark. Nobody was dropping my tutorials and my comments were entirely accurate and just, so there was no problem. Just as I was starting my doctorate, I happened to bump into a kid who I'd consistently given good grades, by and large, effusive praise of the kind reserved for students who are showing graduate-level promise. I thought she was in her final year. It turned out she had just come back to the department after spending 2 years in another field, to take an extra one and finish in my field. I was curious, so I inquired. Her reason for taking 2 years out of field was largely, she said, about a few instances of my trenchancy. I was incredulous, but she insisted. This girl was not a snowflake. She was a varsity athlete and tough as nails, and had never imagined my comments would have that kind of effect on her. I made amends by recommending her for a couple of scholarships and getting her a gold-plated reference letter from a senior member of faculty. But I still regret making her waste a couple of years of her education because of things I said in spite of my overall high opinion of her work and her. What haunts me is the sheer accident of that one working out well. I have no idea what happened to most others. I now go back and read my early phase of comments before every term so I can remember what not to do unless absolutely necessary. There are some people who still need a shot across the bow, but the gun ports stay closed by rule. Story 7. I don't think I ruined her life, but I absolutely could have done something to stop her from ruining her own. My best friend, the quirky girl I met on my second deployment and have been best friends with ever since. When she got out of the military about 3 years ago, she started smoking grass. Normal, right? Sure, until you smoke until you're stupid every morning until night. I moved in with her and helped her slow down. Then I moved out and she got hooked on perks. She didn't talk to me for a few months and I was wrapped up in a new relationship, so I didn't see the signs. When I did, I got her off of it. Then there was Xanax. That was the worst. We got through it, all the while still smoking grass because she had to be baked. I do not think there is anything wrong with smoking. When people search for substances to mask their emotions, they will stop at nothing to get rid of the pain. She was finishing her degree in neuroscience and psychology, never did. All she has is one paper to write and she's done. Instead, she smoked and partied, now doing snow. Then the habit started. I was wrapped in my relationship ending and was not there. It was so bad. By the time I noticed, her and her boyfriend were on the deep end. It pained me to see her that way, and I didn't know what to do, so I tried and it didn't work out this time. This time it was her and him, so she didn't see how bad it was. Then my breakup happened and I left humanity and didn't talk to anyone. I found out last week she started smoking ice around the same time that I disappeared. Now, it may seem like her own doing, but I feel like the worst friend ever. Being wrapped up in myself and not seeing how bad it was, not being there for her on a deeper and more emotional level. How could I not know sooner? I mean, she had all the signs. I grew up around junkies, so I feel responsible for her decline. Good news though, she has been clean now for 5 days. She didn't tell me about smoking ice because she knew I would stop her, and in her words, she didn't want the party to end. All right, 5 days is a pretty solid start. Soon it will be 10, then a month, then a year, then years. Little steps, baby steps are better than no steps at all. Story 8. My in-laws, basically my wife and I started dating at 18 and they were very controlling. My wife is their only daughter and they had her in their 40s, so basically they were those parents that were so bored that they poured all their efforts into their daughter. Well, they were being pretty controlling with her when we were dating, not allowing us to talk to each other much. They would look at the phone bill or hang out a lot. So 1 year later, she decided to run away from home. She ran away from home in 2009. For about 3 years, the relationship was very shaky. The parents both lost weight from not eating. They were always worried that she was going to ruin her life. And then we got married in 2010. They were just distraught that their good daughter decided to run away to get married without even telling them. Now, the relationship is better, but it is still weird. Her dad is always calling her, wanting to hang out. Oh, hi, I'm going to look at couches today. How about I pick you up and we spend the day looking at couches? Or her mom is desperately trying to keep her involved in her culture. She's German. She's always trying to get my wife to participate in the local German clubs, events, and stuff and speak in German all the time. It is a bit sad she doesn't live there and they are constantly trying to keep her as close to still living with them as possible. They even try to bring up just the three of them going on trips from time to time, but my wife shoots them down because she thinks that wouldn't be good for them. All because I agreed with my wife wanting to run away from home. Story 9. I had a girlfriend who showed a lot of interest into the kind of nightlife I was living, mostly drum and bass concerts and festivals with a great community and everything that revolves around it. Thing is, she lied to me and was hiding the fact she had a strong bipolar disorder, and I only discovered it after we broke up. Even though she probably knew it was going to be bad for her mental health, she insisted on getting introduced to substances, and this is what I did. I should have seen the first red flag on her first trip. She had 10 times more visuals than what regular people get, even with much higher dosages. I suppose it's the combination of the substances. Google told me that. Then came a concert and the substances. At first, she was the most happy person on earth. Then she managed to crash, serotonin depletion, in the middle of the roll. She then told lies to my back and to my friends, lies close to me doing bad stuff to her. But I only discovered that after we broke up. The next day, she was infuriated about the smallest things and just thought it was the substance come down. But nope, 2 months later, it was still worse than anything. She could not say 2 words without lying, and it ended up by her breaking up with me for something literally stupid. I asked her if I could contact my ex because last news I had from her, her mother was dying of cancer. She begged me to come back for hours on the phone, but I did not. A friend recently told me she asked him where she could get some substances or just bought it from him. So I guess she's going to mess herself up even more in the future. Not really my fault, but if I discovered her bipolar disorder before, none of that would have happened. Plus, I'm a lot into harm reduction, managed to get the cleanest, purest stuff and wash them myself, AB extractions, etc. She knows nothing of the stuff. She will just fry her brain and crawl into a bipolar-induced depression. So here's the lesson. Please don't get into substances, kids, especially if you have a mental health condition. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you made it this far, I'm pretty sure you're also going to enjoy who is the most hated person in your workplace and why. Story 2 was unbelievably wild. I'll see you in that video, and thank you for watching this one.